America is about 250 years old. Pretty cool, right? Well, for about 230 of those years, America has been in some sort of war, so it's safe to say they invented some technologies and strategies used in warfare. Going back to 1776, we have the American Revolution, America's first official war. In this war, Americans used whatever equipment they could get their hands on, and their uniforms consisted of mostly civilian clothing until the French came and helped. As far as strategies, they had two ways of fighting. Their militias fought a guerrilla war, while the official army fought a defensive war, attempting to avoid total combat with the superior British military. With the first battles in Lexington and Concord, we see how the difference in strategies fared. In Lexington, the US got pushed back in a direct battle with the British, but when the British split up in Concord to look for arms, the Americans pushed them back. Moving to the Mexican-American War in 1846, we see the American style change to a more frontal assault strategy by attempting to overwhelm the Mexican forces, which they did. Outside of the wider use of cavalry and cannons, the equipment and technology effectively remained the same, with single-shot rifles being the weapon of choice for soldiers. With the U.S. Navy blocking off Baja California and the three-pronged attack into Mexico led by General Winfield Scott, the Mexican forces soon came to peace talks. Moving to the Civil War, we see large-scale battles fought in lines with the support of cavalry and artillery. Muskets were the weapon of choice for both sides. The Union strategy was called the Anaconda Plan, which aimed to starve the South of resources and divide down the Mississippi River, while the Confederates attempted to outmaneuver and strike at weak points. New technology used in this war was the railroad to move soldiers around and the ironclad boats in naval skirmishes. With the Spanish-American War, we see the use of the Big Stick diplomacy. Again, in this war, similar to the Mexican-American War, we see America quickly overwhelm the Spanish forces. In this war, we see the change from muskets and single-shot rifles to repeaters with rifle barrels. Naval technologies also advanced with steamships called dreadnoughts, which were slow-moving, heavily armed and armored warships. In World War I, technology continued to advance. Soldiers were now equipped with everything from bolt-action rifles and shotguns to machine guns. Trench warfare was how World War I was fought, with one side often doing large artillery barrages, then charging across no man's land, often resulting in large amounts of casualties. Technologies such as toxic gas and tanks were also used for the first time during this war. During the interwar period between World War I and World War II, weapon development continued, with the U.S. creating their first aircraft carrier, the USS Langley. Into World War II, we see division of branches. Though they existed before World War II, in World War II we see a larger division of this. The United States Army Air Force, which later became the U.S. Air Force, used new aircraft types such as fighters, interceptors, long-range bombers, and attack aircraft. The United States Navy developed new ships, converting from slow dreadnoughts to destroyers, light cruisers, heavy cruisers, battleships, submarines, and aircraft carriers. The ground forces, the U.S. Marine Corps and U.S. Army, used a wider variety of weapons ranging from semi-auto guns like the M1 Garand to fully automatic weapons like the 50 cal. The United States Army and the Marine Corps also used tanks such as the M4 Sherman and the M3 Stuart. Before the United States got directly involved in the war, they used Lend-Lease to help the Allies, which involved giving United States equipment to the UK and the USSR. In World War II, we see America fight a two-front war with island hopping in the Pacific and amphibious invasion into Europe with the rest of the Allies. The most important technological development in World War II was the use of and development of atomic bombs. With the US's use of atomic bombs on Japan, we entered a new era of warfare. Going into the Cold War, we see espionage used much more than actual military combat. This is proved by the development of aircraft like the U-2 spy plane and the SR-71 Blackbird, which could travel an astounding Mach 3.3. While jet aircraft were technically used during World War II, we don't see the wide use of them until the Korean War with aircraft like the American F-86 Sabre and the Soviet MiG-15 Bis. In this war, both sides used a mix of World War II and Cold War weapons. The Korean War is also the first war with the wide use of helicopters. In the Vietnam War, we see the U.S. continue to follow Nixon's policy of containment. Soldiers in the Vietnam War were often equipped with fully automatic weapons such as the M16 and the AK-47. We also see multi-role aircraft such as the F-4 Phantom used, which were able to break the sound barrier. Along with this, we see the use of aircraft such as the B-52 Stratofortress, which had nuclear capability. In this war, we also see heat-seeking and radar-guided missiles used for the first time. With the roughly 20 years or so between the Vietnam and Gulf War, we see even more development. The issue of supersonic flight came around. Without going into too much detail, basically different wing shapes work better for subsonic and supersonic flight, which led to the development of swept-wing aircraft like the famous F-14 Tomcat, which some of you may recognize from Top Gun. We also see crazy experimental technology, such as the time that in 1985, when the United States shot down one of its own satellites in orbit using an F-15 Eagle fighter just to show the world it was possible. In the Gulf War, we see America invade Kuwait to stop Saddam Hussein's invasion of the country. Vehicles such as the M1A1 Abrams and the M3 Bradleys were used by the ground forces in this war. In this war, America was much more technologically advanced than its enemies. This proves especially true in the Battle of 73 Easting, which in only a few days, the US forces destroyed well over 200 Iraqi vehicles for the price of only one American Bradley IFV and one American soldier. This was largely due to the weather on the day. US tanks were equipped with GPS and thermal vision, which gave them an advantage against the Iraqis who were using old, outdated Russian equipment. Another advantage which America had was their Abrams MBT fired APFSDS depleted uranium shells compared to the Iraqis' HEDFS shells fired out of their T-72As. American Bradleys were also equipped with TOW anti-tank missiles and a 25mm autocannon that fired APDS rounds. Following the 9/11 attacks, the U.S. invaded Afghanistan to fight a war on terrorism. While Afghanistan wasn't the only country that the U.S. invaded during this time, it was the most prevalent to the presence of the Taliban. The ground forces' equipment didn't change much, just improving on existing chassis, while the Air Force continued to improve its vehicles, such as the Apache attack helicopter and the feared F-22 Raptor. Along with this, in 2001, NASA developed an aircraft, the X-43, which could fly an insanely fast Mach 9.6, which is over 7,000 miles an hour. Throughout the war on terrorism, the U.S. fought multiple terrorist groups, such as Taliban and ISIS. The war lasted nearly 20 official years until the U.S. pulled out of Afghanistan in 2021. In present day, the U.S. is only currently fighting against small groups of terrorists such as the Houthis in Yemen and aiding countries in their wars such as Ukraine and Israel. Our technology continues to develop, like with the aircraft, the B-21 Raider, and rumors about the new 6th generation fighter jet. Throughout its existence, the U.S. had a large impact on the world and warfare. The development of the atomic weapons was one of the largest impacts ever on the world that the U.S. did, as well as the creation of the 5th generation fighters. I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and thanks for watching.